And Liana Fix is a historian and political scientist focusing on Russia and Eastern Europe. She's currently a resident fellow with the German Marshall Fund. It's great to have you on. You wrote a fascinating, or co-wrote a fascinating article in Foreign Affairs recently asking the question, what if Putin wins? Incredibly interesting article. What would be an acceptable victory? What would it look like for him? Is there an option short of bringing down the government, taking over the country?
Well, I mean, at the moment, it does seem that Russia underestimated Ukrainian resistance. So there is a chance that Ukraine could become Putin's Afghanistan or Iraq war. But if it does not become, and my colleague Michael Kimmich and I tried to think this through, if Ukraine gets under Russian control, then the consequences for Europe and the United States would be significant, because we could see a Ukraine which is led by a Russian regime in Kiev, by a pro-Russian regime, which would let Russia install military equipment in Ukraine, would let Russian troops in Ukraine, and this could lead to a new border on the European continent, a new fortified border basically running from the Baltic states in the north back down to Turkey, between Russian, Ukraine, and EU and NATO states on the other side.
Okay, that's important. Let's talk more about what could be the broader implications of what he's doing, as you touched on there, on the continent. I'm talking about in terms of things like regional destabilization and threats to former Soviet states as well.
Absolutely. I mean, if we think this through, NATO will be very much focused on defending its member states in this new era. So everyone who is not a member of the EU and NATO at this point will be very much left alone outside of these clubs, because Russia will de facto have a veto right with the military power that they would have installed in the region. I mean, this is not to say that this is something which is going to happen. There is obviously hope that Russia will not manage to turn Ukraine into a Russian client state. But I think it is necessary, and we thought it's necessary, to prepare for such scenarios.
And as you wrote in that Foreign Affairs piece, when Russia went into Syria, the US and others said that would be a quagmire. Now it wasn't, and it actually benefited Putin's regional influence and his footprint there. What do you think was Putin's calculus in embarking on this invasion? He obviously didn't think it would be a quagmire.
No, and this shows that Putin's cost-benefit calculus has changed, and it's very different to our own cost-benefit calculus. And they're taking the example of Syria, but also of what happened in Ukraine in 2014, the annexation of Crimea, the destabilization of eastern Ukraine, is something which is already outdated in terms of understanding Russia's actions, because those actions were very much limited to small-scale conflicts where Russia had not to invest too many costs. Now Moscow is willing to invest much more costs, much more resources, and also much more political backlash from the West. We've seen what kind of sanctions have been approved today, and still thinks that in the long term, on this strategic, historic mission that the Russian president finds itself, it will be in Moscow's, or let's say in the Russian president's interests to conduct this war against Ukraine.
One thing that was particularly chilling, and I want your thoughts on it, Vladimir Putin a few days ago threatening the West, essentially saying, anyone who interfered in what he's doing would face consequences they could never have imagined. What did you make of that?
I mean, this coming from a nuclear power is obviously very threatening to EU and NATO member states. And it will lead to exactly the development that Moscow wanted to prevent. Moscow wanted to roll back NATO in Europe, Moscow wanted to roll back US influence and US nuclear weapons stationed in Europe. What we will see is much more US troops in Europe, European countries raising their defense expenditure, a lot more military in Central and Eastern European countries, probably the end of the NATO-Russia Founding Act, which limited this presence. So in the strategic perspective, Moscow might counter all the goals that it had at the beginning with unleashing a war on Ukraine, which goes far beyond the patterns of military involvement that it has used in the past.
Fascinating analysis and a fascinating piece in Foreign Affairs, something well worth contemplating. Liana Fix, thanks so much.
Thank you.